Kintaro. Once upon a time, in a little house at the foot of Ashigara Mountain, there lived a baby boy and his mother. The boy's name was Kintaro, and even as a baby, he was unbelievably strong. By the time he could crawl, in fact, he was as powerful as a full-grown man. Kintaro was his mother's pride and joy, and when he began to walk, she sewed him a beautiful bright red shirt. On the front, embroidered in a gold thread, was the character Kin for Kintaro. Ashigara Mountain was way out in the country, far from any town or village, and Kintaro was a true child of nature. His playground was the forest, and it was easy for him to understand the feelings and languages of all the forest creatures. One day, he and his mother were bathing in the hot spring near their house when a group of animals gathered to watch. Among the animals were a rabbit, a monkey, a squirrel, a deer, a tanuki, and a fox. They wanted to play with Kintaro, but they were too shy to approach him at first. It was the tanuki who finally broke the ice. He jumped into the water to paddle and splash about with the boy, and soon Kintaro and the animals were the best friends. Every day from then on, Kintaro would walk up the mountain to meet his animal friends. All day long, they had fun in the forest, racing and playing games. Sometimes they held wrestling matches, just for fun. But of course, Kintaro always won. The only one who ever beat him was the squirrel. The squirrel scrambled up inside Kintaro's baggy shirt and tickled him, until he fell to the ground, giggling helplessly. The rabbit, who always acted as a referee, lifted one of the squirrel's paws and shouted, "The winner!" And everyone laughed. But by the time Kintaro grew into his oversized shirt, he was so strong that the animals couldn't win even when they all went against him at once. One by one, the husky boy would throw them out of the ring as if they weighed nothing at all. When the cold winter came, the animals would crawl into their holes, shivering, but the freezing weather didn't seem to bother Kintaro at all, nor did the hot afternoons of midsummer. While everyone else was taking nap in the shade, Kintaro would run through the forest. And during the terrifying storms of autumn, he would stand outside all night, holding down his house, so the wind wouldn't blow it away. When Kintaro was 5, his mother gave him a big heavy axe to carry him with him when he went to the forest. Kintaro loved it. He would never use the axe as a weapon. Of course, he was such a gentle boy that he even took care not to step on any ants or caterpillars whenever he walked in the forest. But he was glad to be able to help out his mother by bringing home firewood each day. One day in autumn, Kintaro was in the forest chopping wood when his animal's friends came along. "Kintaro, Kintaro," cried the monkey, "let's go gather chestnuts." "Chestnuts?" "Yes, they're starting to fall from the trees near the top of the mountain." "All right," said Kintaro, "let's go." And so they started up the mountain with Kintaro in the lead. They were all in the best of spirits until they came to the big valley and saw that the bridge was down. It had been destroyed in the last storm. "Oh no," sighed the fox. "What do we do now?" "I could cut this down to make a new bridge," said Kintaro, pointing to the tree beside the valley. "But I don't think it's long enough. I have to try to pull it down from the roots." Well, it was a very big tree, and not even Kintaro, strong as he was, had an easy time of it. But he pulled and ground and pulled while the animals cheered him on, and at last he ripped the tree from the ground and threw it across the valley. It made a perfect bridge. "Hooray for Kintaro! Come on, everybody, let's go get those chestnuts." They crossed the tree bridge and continued up the mountains, and soon they began to see chestnut trees. Here, however, halfway up the mountain, the chestnut trees weren't ripe yet, so they kept on climbing. Kintaro was walking ahead of the rest, gazing up into the branches, when suddenly he cried out, "Ouch!" He had stepped right on the prickly shell of a big, ripe chestnut. "Oh boy! Chestnuts!" shouted the fox, "and look at the size of them!" Kintaro and the animals were picking up all the fallen chestnuts they could find and putting them in their baskets. The higher up the mountain they went, the more chestnuts they found, and before they realized it, they had climbed to the Bear's Peak, where the biggest, meanest bear on Ashigara Mountain was said to have his home. Kintaro was the first to notice. He was wandering around for chestnuts when he saw that all the bark had been scratched away from one of the trees. And no sooner had the deer said this than the big bad bear of Bear's Peak came charging out of the bushes with a ferocious roar. "Yikes! Run for your lives! Run, Kintaro!" The animals scattered into the trees, but Kintaro calmly stood his ground. "Grrr!" growled the bear. "Get off my territory, or I'll crush you like a worm." "We're not hurting anything, Mr. Bear," said Kintaro politely. "But if you're looking for a fight, I'll be glad to have it. Little skirt, I'll rip you to shreds." Growl! Just as the huge creature reared up, flashing its claws and baring its long, sharp teeth, Kintaro rushed in and clinched in a powerful bear hug. Growl! This guy's pretty strong. "Get him, Kintaro! Don't give in!" All Kintaro's friends were cheering him up. But it looked as if the bear was getting the best of him. Then suddenly Kintaro bent back and, with a mighty growl, lifted the great animal up over his head. The bear pawed helplessly at the air. "The winner and a new champion is Kintaro!" the rabbit squeaked. "Hooray!" Kintaro made the bear promise to be nice before he let him down. And from that day on, the bear stopped bullying the smaller animals and became one of the Kintaro's very best friends. Soon, hunters and woodcutters from miles around were returning to their village with stories of an unbelievable sight they've seen on Ashigara Mountain. A little boy in a shirt of red and gold, with a sharp axe over his shoulder, riding bareback on a giant wild bear. The end.